Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to announce the last speakers of today. This is a session concluding our event, and in this session we would like to try to chart the way forward in EU-Canada partnership in common security and defense policy. And to give us a picture of or an overview of what is at stake and where we can go from here is again my boss, Maciej Popowski, Deputy Secretary General of the European External Action Service, as well as Mr. Daniel Jean, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Canada. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, and I guess we're the last speakers, and when you're the last speakers at the end of a seminar, I think if there's one quality that people would like to have from speakers at that time is brevity. So we'll try to be brief. It's a pleasure to be among yourself, and I'm really delighted to be here on this Symposium on Canada-EU Cooperation on Common Security and Defense Policy. L'Union européenne est le deuxième partenaire en matière de commerce et d'investissement pour nous, mais c'est aussi un allié naturel et précieux dans de nombreux dossiers de politique étrangère et de sécurité. 2014 is an important year for this relationship. As you know, we've had the conclusion of our visionary, forward-looking new agreements, both a comprehensive economic and trade agreement, but also a strategic partnership agreement. Pendant qu'on essaie d'élargir et de renforcer notre dialogue dans tous les domaines, le présent symposium arrive à point nommé, en particulier dans le contexte des problèmes de sécurité que connaissent les nombreuses régions du monde, comme la Syrie, l'Iran, le Mali ou la République centrafricaine, et la nécessité de mettre en place des stratégies coordonnées pour y répondre. Malheureusement, le symposium arrive aussi en temps opportun face à l'instabilité montante en Ukraine, contre qui les actes unilatéraux d'agression perpétrés par la Russie nous rappellent que la stabilité d'une région peut rapidement changer. However, the date also provides us the opportunity to celebrate with our European partners, as tomorrow, I understand tomorrow is Europe Day.
Yes.
And on May 9, 1950, the Schuman Declaration proposed the creation of a European coal and steel community so as to prevent another terrible war. This move was not easy, and in fact, there was some controversy regarding its implementation. But it was felt that such a move was necessary to draw previously antagonistic neighbors closer together to make war not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. The results of these conscious, deliberate decisions taken to secure long-lasting peace and stability in Europe have been remarkable, as this partnership grew to eventually become the European Union as we know it today, which has now blossomed to include 28 states and more than 500 million citizens, offering an example of freedom and opportunity to those who struggle against oppressive, autocratic regimes. You have come a long way. Nous sommes rassemblés aujourd'hui en vue de prendre ensemble des mesures visant à mettre fin à la violence à l'échelle mondiale. La majorité des conflits actuels n'ont plus rien à voir avec les conflits d'autrefois qui opposaient des États. Leur nature est fondamentalement différente. En effet, ils menacent la liberté de religion, ciblent les groupes ethniques et religieux et marginalisent des communautés. Aujourd'hui, comme vous le savez, demain, nous avons la journée de commémoration. We have the Day of Honor tomorrow for all our various military, public service people that serve in Afghanistan. And we had a panel with 4 of our last 6 ambassadors in Afghanistan. Our current ambassador in Afghanistan, Deborah Lyon, was saying, you know, today, very often, terrorism is the new war. Les difficultés actuelles liées à la fragilité des États et aux mesures à prendre pour résoudre les crises exigent que nous planifions et agissions de façon globale en nous dotant d'une vision et de priorités communes et en comprenant nos capacités respectives. As our Canadian Foreign Minister, the Honourable John Baird, stated in Brussels last month during the Conference on the Prevention of Genocide, states have a solemn duty to defend the vulnerable, challenge aggressors, protect human rights, and promote human dignity both at home and abroad. This duty begins with conflict prevention, rooted in the commitment to human rights. We should work cooperatively as an international community, and we should not be shy from problems that have the potential to become much more serious. The current situation in Syria, the Central African Republic, and Nigeria are stark reminders that far too many people are denied their rights, freedoms, and dignity. Canada and the EU have identified each other as strategic partners, as demonstrated by our complementary roles relating to sanctions against Iran. We must keep up pressure on Iran to address the International Atomic Energy Agency's long-standing questions on the possible military dimensions of its nuclear research, Iran's egregious human rights records, and Iran's support for terrorism. Canada sees the broadening and deepening of the EU's international engagement as a real opportunity to enhance our already very strong transatlantic ties, both bilaterally and through a multilateral engagement at NATO and the USC. Indeed, effective NATO-EU relations are critical to global and transatlantic security. As such, Canada strongly supports closer institutional ties and more regular political consultations, including on mandate development, mission planning, and implementation. A seminar like the one today is very helpful. At the European Council Summit on Security and Defense last December, Canada was pleased to see a reference to the need to develop the Common Security and Defense Policy, CSDP, in full complementarity with NATO. Just as the main threats facing European security are not purely military and hence cannot be addressed by purely military means, most CSDP operations have involved a mix of civilian and military capabilities through what is referred to as the EU's comprehensive approach, which has now become a hallmark of all EU operations. Canada is pleased to be able to contribute positively to the EU crisis management missions with its police and civilian deployments. Our fruitful bilateral cooperation through the CSDP has been consistently increasing since 2003, including Canadian contributions to EU missions in Afghanistan, Kosovo, the West Bank, and the training mission in Mali. Going forward, Canada sees many more opportunities for cooperation, and we appreciate the efforts that have been made to help address some of the challenges that remain, such as the need for enhanced participation of third countries in the decision-making processes related to operations. À la lumière de la crise en Ukraine, il est devenu important, plus que jamais, de collaborer de façon étroite en vue de coordonner nos pressions politiques sur la Russie et notre appui à l'Ukraine et à nos partenaires dans l'Est de l'Europe. Ces événements viennent souligner encore une fois l'importance que revêt notre partenariat stratégique avec l'Union européenne. La solidarité du Canada avec ses alliés et ses partenaires de l'Est de l'Europe est sans faille, tout comme notre volonté de prendre toutes les mesures nécessaires pour promouvoir la sécurité et la stabilité de l'Europe atlantique face à toute menace d'agression. En réponse à l'évolution des menaces, le Canada réitère avec véhémence l'importance sans équivoque qu'il attache à ses liens transatlantiques de longue date ainsi qu'au maintien de la paix et de la sécurité dans cette région. If the current crisis is of any benefit, it is to remind us of the importance of close friendships among likely-minded partners who share positive values. Comme on dit en français, les crises sont souvent l'occasion de se regrouper et de se serrer les coudes. This offers us the opportunity to renew our commitment to prosperity and human dignity through such initiatives as the CETA and the Strategic Partnership Agreement, ambitious initiatives to generate prosperity and deepen and broaden the scope of our cooperation on international peace and security, the promotion of human rights, non-proliferation, and sustainable development. Thank you for the EU delegation, Ambassador de Koninck, and all your team for your work in bringing us together today to discuss these issues, and to all of the participants for your contributions to enhancing Canada-EU cooperation in common security and defense policy. Merci beaucoup.
Good afternoon, and really apologize to those who are being exposed to me for the second time today. And first of all, I'd like to join Daniel in thanking Marianne and her team for the initiative, for bringing us together for the first time, beginning of a process, I hope, because it was a very useful and very interesting day full of discussions. And I'll try to in my brief comments, so to summarize, to pick up certain issues that we've discussed throughout the day, starting with obviously with the Ukraine crisis and what it means for all of us. Well, it reminds us that peace and stability in Europe are more fragile than we assumed, and that security cannot be taken for granted. It was for the first time since the end of the Cold War that borders in Europe have been changed by force, which is unacceptable. But on the other side, it is a strategic game changer, and we need to draw the right conclusions. We, meaning the transatlantic community. And whenever I refer to we, it's really in the sense of a wider transatlantic community. So in a way, you could say that we woke up from a postmodern dream that international politics could be based on rules and rules alone, because power is back, power politics is back with a vengeance. So we need to draw the right conclusions in terms of security posture, in terms of security policy, in terms of military capability development. So we are rediscovering the wisdom of the old Roman saying, "Si vis pacem para bellum." If you want peace, you need to be ready for war. Unfortunately. But that is the moment, and I said it this morning, to get serious about security and defense, in particular on our side of the Atlantic. And High Representative Cathy Ashton has told the EU defense ministers recently that if the Ukraine crisis is not enough to get real and start serious work on Europe's military capabilities, what else do you need? Which is a rhetorical question. So what kind of consequences, risks, and opportunities flow from the Ukraine crisis? Well, looking at the bigger picture, we are confronted with a new Russia, and President Putin will certainly go down in history as a man on Reconquista, trying to re-establish an empire, but he will also, in hindsight, go down in history as a great integrator of the West, because he has brought us on both sides of the Atlantic closer together than ever in the last 15 years, and he has brought the EU in NATO closer together than ever in the last 15 years. So it's also a very welcome effort to the consolidation of a transatlantic alliance. Ukraine is having a major impact on the understanding of the very notion of security, and it will impact any mid to long-term work, both in terms of planning, capability development, security posture. We already see it happening, and it's also contributing to a change in threat perception in Europe. For some years, in particular after 9/11, we've all focused on the new threats: terrorism, cyber, climate change-related threats. You know, all those wars fought over access to war, and it's still valid. But we should realize that the conventional threats didn't go anywhere, and we should be ready to counter them as well. So in that context, I would like to salute the NATO allies for their reinforced presence in Eastern Europe, which is very welcome. I mean, this is the necessary reassurance for many allies that coming from other countries, including, of course, Canada. We need to adapt our public narrative on security. Again, I'm repeating myself, but we need to hammer home the message that security has a price tag, that it's not God-given, and it requires investment and it requires commitment, not only from the political class, but also from the public opinion. So we need to revert the negative trend on defense spending if we want to be able to act, and if we want to remain credible, both as a NATO alliance, as the European Union in its role as a security actor. I think that the demand for Europe defense capabilities will grow. And I'm really against labeling capabilities as belonging to EU, NATO nations individually. We need them. I mean, as long as they're available, we can label them any way you want. But we need to continue developing them. I already mentioned that there is this new rapprochement between EU and NATO. NATO is going back to its core functions of collective defense and deterrence. And it makes our activity, our missions and operations, our engagement in the framework of CSDP very complementary to what NATO is doing in a very natural way. So all those missions and operations that we discussed during the day, be it in Central African Republic or off the coast of Somalia, are uniquely European in the sense that we are uniquely placed to conduct them on behalf of a wider international community, and everybody stands to benefit from that. So it's a very natural and understandable way of burden sharing in particular between European Union and NATO. Well, many of you have referred to, including Daniel, to our leaders' discussion on security and defense last December. And it goes without saying that the Ukraine crisis has put the implementation of these conclusions by our leaders in a different light. There is a new sense of urgency. There is this realization that we need to get serious, that I mentioned before, and that should be Europe's message when European leaders, both national and EU leaders, attend the upcoming summit of NATO in Wales in September. Well, more specifically, what does this all mean for the EU cooperation with Canada? I think this initiative could not be more timely in the sense we need to add this security, defense and security dimension to our ongoing cooperation, which is thriving, which is very rich, but traditionally has been focused on trade relations. But we have so many other aspects to deal with that security and defense cannot be a missing link. Throughout the day, I've had many voices from the audience questioning the rationale of Canada's engagement with Europe beyond NATO, and I understand where it comes from. So I try to assuage these concerns. I mean, there is huge scope for more engagement within CSDP framework, building on good results achieved so far in the Balkans, in the Middle East, Afghanistan, and Africa. We can really do more. But we should also express it that we, the European Union and Canada, we also constitute a community of values. So that brings us together. So the institutional framework is one, it's NATO or EU, but we are a community of values, and we should act as such. And there is also a lot of, I would call it a conceptual convergence when it comes to our approach to security and defense. We've discussed the comprehensive approach, and I know that Canada's thinking about bringing all those relevant strands together, diplomacy, defense, development, it's very close to others. I mean, you may call it differently, but the thinking, the rationale is basically the same, so we do not differ. So the good cooperation between European Union and Canada is also to be seen as a contribution to the unity of purpose and resolve of the transatlantic community, which is now being put to the test by the ongoing crisis in Ukraine. And to conclude, most of you have a notebook in front of you with the title of the seminar, EU-Canada Cooperation in Common Security and Defense Policy. And well, mine is still empty because I was busy speaking, but I'm sure that most of you have filled it with very good ideas for future cooperation on security and defense between EU and Canada in the months and years to come. Thank you.
I think we've met the brevity objective.
Absolutely. The green light is still on, so it's perfect.
Thank you. If you allow me this to say a few words at the end of this conference, as closing this conference, and I think that this symposium has been a premiere and has been extremely successful, and as said here by the two speakers, it's the beginning of a process which definitely will mean that there will be a follow-up of the process, and I'm sure that these discussions have been very fruitful. It has certainly contributed to the awareness what the common defense and security policy is, awareness that it's part of a very rich relationship between the European Union and Canada already, and also awareness that there is absolutely also a big scope and potential to strengthen our cooperation, Canada and European Union, in this field. I would like to thank all the participants at this symposium, those who came here, the Canadian ones, or in Canada, the colleagues from the European Union here, also the colleagues from the European Union who came from headquarters. I think it's particularly appreciated. I also would like to thank very much the teams who made this, realized this important symposium. The teams as well from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of the Ministry of National Defense, the teams also from headquarters Brussels, and my own team. I particularly would like a special thanks to Manfred Auster, who has been playing a key role in organizing this event and making it successful. And to close, I would like to invite you all to our Europe Day event, which will start at 6 o'clock at the City Hall. You know, Europe Day is a very important day for us all, and I would like to see you all also to celebrate this with us later this evening. Thank you very much.